Get more on this now with Hiba Zayadin, who's a senior researcher in the Middle East and North Africa Division, investigating human rights abuses in Syria and Jordan. She joins us now from Oman. Really good to have you with us, Hiba. We mentioned there some of the atrocities that have been committed by Israeli forces during their latest attack on Gaza. But this isn't anything new, is it? Because Israeli forces have routinely broken international law every time they've entered into a conflict involving Gaza.
Absolutely. This is not at all new. I mean, we've got 16 years of crushing restrictions, of a punishing blockade on Gaza that has been ongoing. I really want to make clear that the Israeli government's cutting of electricity, food, fuel, and water into Gaza 10 days ago, the complete blockade is a form of collective punishment. And collective punishment is a war crime. So is using starvation as a weapon of war. Depressingly, none of this is new, but the humanitarian situation in Gaza right now is beyond catastrophic. I don't even have the words to explain it. You know, Gaza's only power plant has run out of fuel and has shut down. Doctors in Gaza are unable to care for children and other patients because the hospitals are overwhelmed by victims of Israeli airstrikes. They're telling us they're running out of painkillers, using vinegar as replacement for antiseptic. One doctor tragically told us he had to choose between two children, which one to keep alive on a ventilator, which one looked more promising to treat. The situation is going to get worse than this. Public health officials are saying that the lack of water, the contamination of areas by sewage, the bodies that cannot be safely stored into morgues could trigger an infectious disease outbreak. The situation is absolutely catastrophic, and every hour that this blockade continues costs lives.
As you say, Israel's 16 to 17-year blockade of Gaza was already creating a humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip, and their total siege now has just made things go from bad to worse. The UN describes it as catastrophic. How important is it then that supplies get in through the Rafah border crossing? We know the US president says Israel has agreed for those supplies to go through Egypt into Gaza. That hasn't happened as yet. How urgent is that need at this point?
It is absolutely urgent that a humanitarian aid is able to get into Gaza without impediment and immediately. But I want to say something on this U.S. mediated agreement. Allowing the movement of up to 20 trucks of food, medicine, and water into Gaza is laughable. Let me just try and put this into perspective for you of how measly this agreement is. Before the war broke out, the UN's Emergency Relief Agency was delivering around 100 trucks a day. This agreement is to allow up to 20 trucks. This won't even begin to adequately address the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza today. We have called and continue to call on Israel's allies to press the Israeli government to restore water and electricity supplies. It can just switch back on the electricity and the water to Gaza, and they should do that immediately and without impediment. And they have to lift this, the unlawful restrictions on aid delivery and closure. This agreement is not anywhere near enough. It's absurd.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for a humanitarian ceasefire in the current hostilities. Yet when the US president visited Israel, he didn't repeat those calls. He didn't call for a ceasefire. He didn't even call for restraint in Israeli attacks. On one level, that was hugely disappointing, but also not a surprise. How important is it that a ceasefire, at least a humanitarian pause in fighting, occur in order for the aid, not only for the aid to be delivered, but for health workers to attend to the thousands of people who've been injured, 12,500 at the current count?
Like I said earlier, every hour, every minute of this blockade is costing lives. We are urging the U.S. and other allies, and like you said, it has been, disheartening to say the least. But we're not even just calling for that. We're calling on Israel to end its 16-year long illegal blockade on Gaza and all other aspects of its system of apartheid on Palestinians, which this collective punishment is a form of that crime against humanity.
Okay, Hiba Zayadin from Human Rights Watch. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.